learning curve, innit, mate? We're good to go. Scott, thank you so much for coming on My Man. How's things?
No, good, mate. Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
It's a repaying the favour, mate. It was great to be on your podcast. How have you been?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah. Since we last had a catch up, I've been really good, thank you.
Good, mate. Good, mate. What you got going on?
Crikey, where do we start? Do you know what? Actually, I've calmed down a bit. I'm usually spinning a lot of plates, but I've got the focus on obviously the property developer show being the main focus at the moment. Then on the property side of things, I've got a plot of land that I'm trying to get planning for 3 houses on.
Amazing, mate.
And then I'm just in the process of buying a bungalow as well.
Spot on, mate. Fucking spot on. So you have got your hands full.
Yeah. Well, that's calm at the moment. Yeah,
for you.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know who you are, then Scott, just take us back, because I know you've had quite a bit of a journey. You're only young yourself now, still. So where did it all start for you?
So I was basically really fortunate, and a few circumstances happened sort of in my life. I was floating around, sort of usual. I was into sport. So I've been sort of fortunate with, I suppose, my early opportunities in life. So I was kind of never really into anything. I was really sporty, enjoyed football, any sport really, rugby, football, everything. Did sport at college because, that sort of thing, didn't know what I wanted to do. Kind of through school, a typical, as most people on business podcasts say, selling sweets and this, that and the other. I was doing that, but I wasn't really, I didn't think, I'm an entrepreneur. I was just doing it because I needed a bit of extra money. And it made sense, buy a load of Kit Kats at Morrison's and then go to school, sell them for, 50p back in the day when it was, I think that's what I was selling them for, £1, something like that. So I used to have like a pocket full of change. So anyway, sort of left college, went to do Camp America of all things. Seriously, thinking that I was sort of going to go down like the sort of football coaching route. Wow, actually, that sort of thing. And I realised I didn't like kids, so
I'm the same. I'm the same.
That put the kibosh on that pretty quick. So anyway, when I was in America, I was in New York. I did a bit of sort of travelling on my own, and randomly I was on the .gov website and looking at apprenticeships, and this apprenticeship come up, property developer apprentice. So I was like, apply for that. Didn't really think anything of it. Anyway, sort of 2-3 months later, I ended up getting that job, and that sort of set me on this kind of path and journey, so to speak, into property. So in essence, I was working for a young lad that made money in telecoms, started putting that into property. I was on £3.30 an hour. I was basically just cheap labour for all the projects he had going on, but I kind of started to probe, started to ask him questions, how have you done it? What's the key to success? That sort of thing. And as I said on our podcast, on the Property Developer podcast, like I was literally on Google, like how to become a millionaire, and like, trying to figure out. I don't think for me it's not being a millionaire. It's kind of, I think for me it's the journey and becoming that person now, and that's more important now than the actual end goal, because the end goal, I think most of the time, when people reach it, they realise that it's not quite what people thought. Look at likes of Tyson Fury and, people like that get to the pinnacle of their career and realise that actually it was the journey that they were sort of chasing. So that's where I'm at the minute. I'm chasing the journey and sort of, I suppose, just trying to leave a good imprint on the planet before I disperse it.
One thing we said on your podcast, people have to go listen to it if they haven't yet, but we were saying about like you had a sort of mentor to you, if you like, when you went to that job, and then you got your own business, and then you was a mentor to a younger lad. It's an amazing thing, that, isn't it? And seeing someone who's eager, who's younger, it's like an amazing thing, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's paying it forwards, isn't it? I was fortunate enough to be in a position where I had that influence, such a young age, such a vulnerable sort of age, where you do succumb to a lot of what you see on social media or what you see other people doing or other adults that you inspire to be like. Some people have bad influences in their life, and I was fortunate enough to have a really good influence. And from a business perspective, but personally, I probably didn't agree with most of the stuff he was doing. But from a business perspective, I mean, he was just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So, could make money from nothing almost. Yeah, but his moral compass kind of wasn't quite aligned to mine, so we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So where did it transition from there then? Because you obviously, so were you actually in America, was you?
Yeah.
It's incredible, mate. Yeah.
North Carolina. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there, you come back, you done your, you got your job. And then where did you transition? Because you obviously had your own business.
Yeah, so sort of in between doing jobs, so I can list a few jobs off. So I've done obviously the property developer apprenticeship. I never actually finished that. I got about 6 months in, and for various reasons left. I then did door-to-door sales, selling Kirby vacuum cleaners. That was absolutely ruthless. Learned loads on sales. So then I went into working for a e-tail business, selling on via Amazon. So like doing drop shipping, but like on a not like a Instagram influencer level, like on a massive scale. And then moved on to letting agency, and then sort of realised that property was where, because I saw I used to talk about when I was sort of in the e-tail business, it was just, I was talking about property, chewing everyone's ear off in the office and stuff. So realised that's the direction I wanted to go in, and then sort of worked for a HMO lettings business for literally a couple of months. And then I realised I could raise funds to invest in property, and I didn't realise you could do that. Obviously I didn't come into the property game through like, the usual channels, through like YouTube videos and stuff like that, or watching influencers. I literally had no idea about all that. So it was only when I went to work for the HMO lettings business that I realised you could use other people's money to invest, basically. So I'd kind of built up the experience, obviously being in property, similar to yourself, obviously like estate agency, you kind of get a feel for how the industry works. I then met my business partner, who had been very successful in affiliate marketing, started to put money into property. He had the money, had the experience and knowledge, obviously, of the industry, put the two together. And then within sort of 18 months, we sort of went from 0 to 7 properties. I think that's right, something along those lines.
Yeah.
It was a while ago now, so loose count. But yeah, that's when really I suppose the business momentum started. And then I went from buying property, COVID happened, buying HMOs, sort of mini HMO, 4-bed, 5-bed, that sort of stuff. COVID happened, sort of flawed the business model because we were doing flips as well. We were fortunate enough to sell a couple of flips just before we went into lockdown, had a bit of cash, decided to start doing commercial finance of all things, doing furniture leasing, so, like the likes of this table and chairs, and for HMOs, and obviously if you lease it, it's tax benefits to that. So we were arranging the finance for that, and then that led into buying a mortgage brokerage, bringing another director in, growing that business, and then start of 23, I sold my shares to the business partners in that, and then moved on to the developer show.
That's interesting. For now, there's a few questions I got from that. One of the first things I'd like to sort of, I was thinking about when you said you never found property like the traditional way of like maybe YouTube podcast. It was kind of from working like a letting agency. Yeah. So how did you click onto the fact that you can use sort of other people's money, if you like?
Yeah, so I think I got introduced to a training company basically through my employer at the time, and I started to I attended a couple of their free events and sort of got an idea of what was actually behind the curtains, in a sense of like being a creative investor rather than just being like a normal bog standard landlord, because you probably see it. Do you work in lettings or was it?
No, just like sales, yeah.
So I worked in a letting agency, and I couldn't believe like the difference between the landlords that you kind of get in that estate agent in the lettings business versus like, the people that you have on this podcast, for example. Yeah. Like there is truly a difference between like an accidental landlord and a professional landlord, and there is the sort of difference between the two is huge. And when you sort of figure out the other side of the fence, like there's just so many ways to skin a cat in this game. You've got purchase lease options, you've got raising finance, JV in, you've got you buy one, I buy one, it's probably source, it's endless.
Yeah,
that kind of opened my eyes up to opportunity within the industry. And I've always been quite an opportunist. When I was working full time, I was doing gardening, and apologies to anyone out there that I cut their lawn, because I definitely they didn't call me back the following year anyway. But I was cutting grass, I was doing EPCs. Funnily enough, I've got a story on that. I ended up sort of digressing a little bit. Ended up going around to this guy's house and doing an EPC, and he was selling it to like a we buy any home sort of thing. And I was like, oh, what are you selling it for? And he was like, oh, I don't know what it was. It was something like 85k. And I was like, well, I'll give you 85k like now. That's when I was started to sort of invest. I was still doing the EPCs to kind of support the income. as people do, and ended up buying this house for like 90,000 off the back of doing EPC. So that's a good way of, you know, for those property sources out there that are looking for it, start doing EPCs. And
Interesting, yeah.
So yeah, I was doing EPCs. I was, you know, doing all sorts of like random businesses, and kind of got that love for business as well as property.
Yeah.
And I think I enjoy property. It's kind of, you know, it's good to have that always going on, but I enjoy business more than I probably do. And I know I'm conscious that you don't want to go on the business route.
No, I love it, mate. And I'm going to say, you didn't do any extra work, did you, as a bellboy or anything like me?
No extras. No.
Well, no, I'm all for it, mate. And I think we agreed on that. Having a trading business is like a great way. But that's interesting, mate. So why did you exit the brokerage then? What was the reason?
Yeah, so basically couldn't agree a direction to go with the business. And I mean, my sort of ambition in life, so to speak, is, you know, I want to achieve some big things.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I suppose the direction the business was going versus where I wanted to take it, and the other business partners wanted to sort of take it, we just couldn't agree. I've got a brilliant relationship with them both, and we always had, and do you know what, they're a great example of business partners. I struggle to find anyone probably similar to those guys, where we couldn't find a middle ground. So there's always a solution to a problem. It wasn't about falling out. It was just finding a price point that worked for me and worked for them. And obviously that's sort of what happened. And, you know, amongst other things, there was a lot of moving parts to it, but in essence, it was just a directional issue. And for me, I've always been of the mind that, you know, the world's my oyster sort of thing, and I'm not afraid to take that kind of risk and go, well, you know what, I'm not willing to just settle.
Yeah.
I want to continue to push, and to be honest with you, it's worked out favourably, obviously, with the show and other stuff that I've got going on now. So it's sort of, it was the right decision, thankfully.
Yeah. And do you believe in partnership still then?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think, although I think it's got to be relative in a sense of, for me now, I'm enjoying running my own business on my own, because my mistakes are my mistakes, and obviously the uplift and the profit, I'm not having to share it, and, you know, all the various moving parts to that, and decision making, it's either my way or there is no other option to that. So, but then on the opposite side of that, you know, if I'm in a sticky situation, it was always good to have, you know, two other, in my scenario, two other people to bounce something off. You know, what do you think of this? What's the best? And work through ideas in that kind of way. But you can kind of get that from obviously a business coach or that sort of thing. But I think there's definitely pros and cons to it. I would probably argue now I'd try and be more of a solo entrepreneur than a partnership. But that's just because of the resources that I've got access to now, both from a knowledge and also financial perspective.
It's quite easy to just jump into bed with someone as well, isn't it, and get gassed up in the moment.
I've done that, mate. Yeah. I you know, I still made that mistake over the last 12 months. You know, so sometimes it just doesn't work out. You think it's going to work out in the way, but it just doesn't. And
business hits you in the face, don't it? And then
But that's, you know, I'm still 27. I'm still learning. I don't proclaim to know everything at all, and I'm still making shitloads of mistakes. But I embrace those mistakes now. That I think. I use a phrase, I always use phrases, but if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying hard enough. And I think that's the reality of business, is if you're not making mistakes, you really aren't trying hard enough.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. The events business then, what you've got going on now, just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so basically, I'll give you the origin of how the business came about. So I attended a local business show, completely irrelevant to property. And I knew the guy that set it up did a fantastic job on his first event. I thought, you know what, this is a really great sort of business model. And I checked what was out there for specifically property developers and realised that there was nothing. You know, you've got a couple of shout outs there. You've got like Landlord Investment Show. They do a fantastic job, obviously, on the landlord side. Then you've got like Property Investor Show that's mostly based down in London. They cover like the whole industry. But there was nothing out there specifically to property developers. So I thought, you know what, that's got to be a niche. So anyway, I tested the idea in Stoke, because that's kind of close to where I am, being Cheshire based. And it's kind of gone from strength to strength there. Obviously, the Wednesday just gone, obviously recording today on a Saturday, we had the Birmingham show, and it's sort of, the numbers are better, the turn up was better, the exhibitors are sort of getting better as well. It's just, it's all pushing in generally quite a nice sort of direction. And then another shout out for me. Got 4th of September for the Manchester show, so we're aiming for that to be the biggest event of this year.
Amazing.
And then hopefully adding a couple more locations next year as well.
I'll be on that, mate. So what date in Manchester? What?
4th of September.
4th of September.
Wednesday, that is. First day the kids go back, so people will be no excuses.
Brilliant, mate. So what is your goal with that? Just to grow it, and obviously you've got your podcast and stuff like that, which is amazing. Absolutely loved it, mate, when I was on there. What is your goal with that? Is it to just grow and grow?
Yeah, so I think sort of there's a lot of spin-offs with it. You know, you've got the media side of things, you've got the sort of the fact, you know, we're getting a lot of attendees there exhibiting there. I'm talking to good exhibitors. You know, there's huge amount of scope in terms of like the networking side of things. And as you know, people say your network is your network and all that. So as cliche as it is, it's very true. So it's helping me on that sort of level as well. But the objective of the business itself is to sort of just grow it to a good level, potentially bring some sales execs in where I can kind of alleviate some of the work on that side and kind of take a little bit of a step back and see, you know, what other scope we've got out there to sort of grow the business. But I think the main objective really is to, you know, add value to the industry in a sense of, you know, there's 4.6 million houses we're short of in the UK, and you know, if I can play a small role in improving those numbers, then yeah, I'm all for that. And that's kind of the objective, to sort of bring exhibitors together with developers and seeing how we can sort of improve the industry from a B2B perspective, you know, and a developer to service provider kind of perspective as well.
That's interesting, mate, and I imagine it pulls quite a lot of opportunities towards you as well. Yeah. Like the podcast, I always say that about the podcast. I'm not the greatest networker in the world of going to your sort of traditional networking events, but I think when you have someone like a podcast events business, it kind of attracts people to you rather than you going out pushing for opportunities. It's pulling towards you. I kind of love that. In terms of property, then, what you got going on at the moment? I know you've done. Are you still? Obviously, you clearly are still active. You're gonna.
Yeah. So I took a bit of a break from property, obviously, when COVID was happening. I think if you managed to buy property during that time period, then, you know, absolute credit to you. But the avenues that I was using, I struggled to do that. Mostly I get most of my stuff from estate agents or sort of before it goes to market kind of thing, just through those types of relationships. So as well as obviously growing the finance business, that was taking up a lot of time. So it was struggling to find time for both, really. So I ended up sort of buying a property, 21. I think I mentioned it on the podcast episode. Ended up buying that for like 55,000, sort of just as we were coming out of lockdown. Spent like 35 on it, and then ended up selling it for 127.5. You know, it was just within I said 12 months on my podcast, but it was literally within about 6 months we managed to do that. The thing that held it up the most was getting the land registry charge, or getting the ownership changed on land reg, then so we could sell it. That was the only thing that held it up, basically. So that tells you how quickly we managed to turn it around. So I didn't buy anything then for a while, and then when I sold the business, I bought a 3-bed semi with a JV partner, or JV partners, should I say, and with the plot of land. So the land had planning for 2 houses, 2 semi-detached. We tweaked the plot, pulled the garage down, and we put in for 2 3-bed semis and a 3-bed detached bungalow. And we're hoping to get. It's been a bit of a thorn in my side, the deal has. We'd sold the 3-bed semi, the existing house, not the land. We'd obviously split the land off and, you know, title split, whatever you want to call it, and we'd sold that back in August to one buyer, and they've just messed us around, basically. So our loan, and this is reality of property, and I'm happy to share the ups and downs. Obviously, I've been talking about all the ups so far, but that fell through February. Well, it's not falling through. Basically, we pulled the plug on the buyer, and our loan renewed, which was 5% of the loan, which was 5% of 200 grand, 10 grand, and we're now having to service the loan monthly. But as I mentioned on our episode, that is the importance of why you bake in 20%, at least 20% margin, because shit does go wrong, and when it does go wrong, you've got to have the margin there to support it, and obviously you've got to have the cash flow from, you know, another business or whatever, or the properties, to be able to support when it does go wrong. And to be honest with you, I think we're due a bit of luck on it, which is hopefully getting the 3 units on, and then we'll get that sold hopefully. And then we've got 2 buyers on the property now, but they're just not in a position to start the conveyancing process because they've got their properties on the market. So it's not like we can't sell it for what it's worth. It's been valued up twice where we've sold it at. So it's just that it's such a quirky, it's the best house on the worst street sort of thing, rather than, you know, the worst house on the best street, as people say. But it's an absolute stunning Victorian semi-detached. I think the owner of Mornflakes, who obviously a big cereal manufacturer locally, used to own that house.
Wow.
The older, or the owner that we bought it off, split it into 2 semis basically because it was too big for him.
Yeah.
And then obviously we bought the left side plus the land. So absolutely, they don't build them like that anymore, I can tell you that.
And where was that?
Crewe, that is.
Crewe.
Yeah.
I like that strategy though, because it's kind of like you buy a house, you've got the plot there, and then you've just separated it, got the planning on it, selling that as an uplift sort of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
It's an incredible, because there's so many ways, like you say, there's so many ways to skin a cat. There's so many ways to make money in that scenario, isn't there? So if you flip, imagine you got the house relatively cheap or whatever, make the profit on that, and then you've still got that land to be a Brucey bonus for, you know.
Well, if things had gone to plan, we'd bought the land for 280. We'd have been all in for about 330 if we'd sold within sort of the 12-month period, and then we'd sold the house for 280. That's what it's valued at. Obviously, that's what we bought it for in auction, and the land could be anything between 100 to 175,000.
It's incredible, isn't it?
So,
and I feel like to quote me if I'm wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it kind of de-risks you as well. You're getting the house pretty cheap, and then you've still got that land. I know a couple of people do that, and it's a really interesting strategy. It's something I've never looked into. Do you think you'll keep doing stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I want to get this one out of the way first.
I bet you do, yeah.
Before I start doing like that. But, you know, once you get, it's like your first, you know, I'm sure your first refurb isn't as good as the refurbs you're doing
100%.
It's, for me, it was a level up from doing, you know, a 3-bed terraces, turning them to HMOs, which there's a lot to that. But to then go into the planning game, there's just so... People think, oh, I can go from doing a buy-to-let, buy, refurb, refinance to doing property, you know, new ground-up developments. And there's just so many nuances that are it's a completely different business model. Yeah. Completely different business. Yes, it's property, the end result's the same, but the nuances on the front end, you know, you've got S106, there's just a whole...
See, that's foreign to me already, all that.
So it's almost like you've got to throw the book out and then learn a new
Learn again. It's funny when you said about, like, your first deal and stuff like that. I actually did really well on my first deal, but still, some of the mistakes, I look back, I got the plastering done and then the first fix after. That's how terrible I was, mate. I wasn't thinking straight at all, but yeah, interesting, mate. So you've got that going on. What are some of the tips then you give your sort of younger self? I know we had this conversation and this question you asked to me, and I really like the question. I think it's quite interesting, but what are some of the tips? Because again, you started quite young, didn't you? Yeah. What are some of the tips that you would give to your younger self now?
I think it's not so much a tip, but it's more of an insight, I guess. And people have said this to me, for successful people have said it to me, like, they can see how eager and ambitious I was, and it's just have patience. And I know it's, if you are young and you are listening to this,
it's irritating, and it's someone saying that, have patience, but it is super true.
And do you know what? I think if I look back the last 5 years, I think where I was 5 years ago and then 5 years before that and where I am now, like, I think I would be really proud of myself and like, you know, well done sort of thing. And this is where I had hoped maybe a little bit further ahead, but I'd be happy with what I've got sort of thing. And I think you've just got to trust the process. So the patience, you've got to trust the process. If you keep putting the work in, turning up day in, day out, you're going to get results. You're going to deliver on something. It's impossible. If you're, you know, digging a hole, you're going to reach, you know, the water or whatever it is, the gold or something that you're after. If you just keep doing it day in, day out, it doesn't matter how long it takes you, you're going to get that result. And for some people, it comes really quick. For others, you know, it might take a decade, a couple of decades, but it's just all about enjoying the process, B, trusting the process, and C, being patient with that approach.
I didn't learn that till late on, though. Like the patience thing, I've always been patient. Jesus Christ, I've done 12-hour shifts for years, you know what I mean? So I learned patience quickly, but enjoying the process is a massive thing. Like when I had that move, and mate, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And like you say, sometimes you could make good money, but it's all good making good money. But if you hate what you do, it's just pointless, isn't it?
No,
it's absolutely pointless. But yeah, that's interesting. And I'd probably say the same to myself. And it does pay dividends, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Keep working hard and it will.
Yeah.
It will come.
1,000,000%.
But what are the plans for this year for yourself then? What have you? Obviously, you've got that going on. You like myself. You've got to spinning a lot of plates, and it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's how we sort of like it. But what have you? What are your plans for this year?
I think obviously get to the Manchester show, really sort of level that up compared to the other two events, and hopefully sort of carry that into next year. Improving both Stoke and Birmingham, the first two events that we've ran. And then I think just carry on sort of with the property side of things. I need to get that, Stewart Street is the one in Crewe. I need to get that out of the way, and then I'll start. Some people argue, well, I'll go and buy another one. It doesn't really matter. But, I'm in a position where I've got stuff to lose now, and I don't want to take too much risk. I jeopardise what I've built over the last, 5 years and take more risk than I necessarily need to. Because I've learned that, particularly being in the financial business, that stuff can go wrong. I've seen, we're doing a commercial finance business loans for some businesses that had just overextended themselves and just took too much risk and lost a great business because they made a bad decision on trying to grow, and it wasn't the right decision at the right time. So touching on that, I've probably only just started to be patient with my approach to things. And yeah, some people out there that, are buying, 100 units a year or whatever, fair play to them, credit to them, and most of them don't survive. And you don't hear about that because they often disappear to Barbados or somewhere. But I'm in this for the long term. I want to create a good reputation for myself. I don't want to take the quick wins. I want to enjoy the journey, and that's what it's about for me. So, kind of going to take a rain check. I'm going to Cyprus for a month at the end of the year.
Nice,
the first time I'm doing that this year, and taking life a little bit more sort of slowly, but I'm still fast paced. But slow for me is my version.
It's good that you're conscious of that, mate, though, because like I'm the same. I sort of only realise until it's too late, and you're like, oh my god, this is hectic. I've got so many plates spinning, and it's scary sometimes. And you realise like you can, no matter how fast your brain works, mine works extra fast, but you can take too much on, can't you? So it's good that you're conscious of that. Are you conscious of that because just from seeing it, like you said, from other people, or have you been in that position where you're like, whoa, this is I've took quite a lot on here?
For me, I was when I had the financial services business, I was chasing like the exit, I was chasing the sale, and I didn't sell for what I was hoping to sell for, but I still sold and had enough money to support. I didn't need to work, sort of thing. Yeah, obviously, I probably would have had to go back to work eventually, but I was comfortable, and that comfort is what scared me. And I was so quick, I was so focused on rushing to that point that actually I got there, and I was not obviously like Tyson Fury, but
yeah, I know what you mean.
I got to what I was trying to achieve. It wasn't like extremely life-changing money, but it was enough for my circumstances to live very comfortably. And it was a nightmare. It was not what I expected it to be. So for me now, it's all about work-life balance is a big thing for me. And I suppose just really enjoying the journey and maximising the resources that I've built up over this time. Because for years, and you're probably the same, I saved, I never spent any money, I drove shit cars, all my friends were going out, I wasn't going out, I sacrificed holidays, sacrificed nice things, used to wear like the same clothes all the time because I didn't want to buy new, all this sacrifice for so many years. I'm like, right now, I'm going to enjoy it as well as still obviously adding to the resources. So
I resonate with that so much, mate. So much. I understand. Yeah, honestly, I resonate with that so much, and it's interesting to hear yourself say it. But I think a lot of people say, I was speaking to Martin before, and he's the same. And it's hard, and it's hard to get out of that mindset sometimes. But I love how aware you are, to be fair. So especially for being so young, it's good to be that way. But very interesting, mate.
I think self-awareness if you're in business, you need self-awareness, because you need self-awareness to know when you're burning out. You need self-awareness when, you know, you're making the wrong decisions. You need self-awareness when you're making right decisions. You need to be aware of you because at the end of the day, if this stops working, everything that I've got going on is fucked. I've got, you know, life insurance, but it creates it creates havoc with all the people that are involved, you know, with me from a business perspective, and my family, my partners, you know. So you need to look after yourself from a self-awareness perspective and make sure that you're getting a good balance. Because if you burn out or you take too much risk and you risk everything that you've sort of built so far, you've got to ask yourself, is it worth it?
Yeah, that's it. That is it, mate. Completely. God bless my girlfriend, mate. She thinks I'm a lunatic. Like, honest to God, my brain is just constantly. But that is how I like it. But sometimes, like, I just went to Shropshire for 2 days, just like in a glamping pod sort of thing, just to literally sit down. I think there's a documentary on Bill Gates, and he basically has like a think week every year. Have you seen it? Yeah. He has a think week every year, and that just fit. Like, if one of the richest men in the world's doing that, you've got time to like stop your business, not answer your phone for a bit, just say, listen, I'm going away. Business is not going to break down. Just go away, have a think, and just like, I like journaling and stuff like that. I think that helps me massively. But I love that you're aware of that. But it's sometimes all systems go, isn't it?
Yeah. You've got to take that rain check. You know, for me, I do that through. Hopefully, at the end of the year, I'll go to Cyprus, and that for me will be like, right, rain check. What's going on? What was this year like? How can we improve it for next year? And I've done that. You know, I've made some of my biggest decisions ever on holiday because for me, the outside world has stopped.
Yeah.
And I'm just focused on, right, where am I at as a person, and what can I improve in this situation? And, you know, for me, it's a holiday. For someone else, it might be a little bit different. But I'd imagine the majority of people, it's just stopping, not focusing on work, and just focusing on where you're at personally and business wise.
Yeah.
But your personal life's important as well. You know, if you've got a shitty partner that's making your life hell,
that's it.
Yeah, you've got to ask questions, haven't you? You know,
100%.
It's the same with business. If you've got a shitty business that's causing you hell, you know, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results.
100%. I think if you're out of environments as well, like you have a different thought process. You're not thinking about the phone. I just feel when you're in the same place constantly, your phone's off the hook. It's so easy to get bogged down and just every day is the same. Like you say, it is like Groundhog Day, and you're just chasing. You need to give yourself that time. Like, we're going away at the end of the month, but I knew I needed, it's only a break to bloody Shropshire for a couple of days, but I just needed that break of fresh air, out of environment, just grass for miles, and just literally take my notepad and just think. No, it's hard for some people because they feel so bogged down. But yeah, and I'm the same. But yeah, it's interesting, mate. I love speaking to you because I feel we are on the same wavelength quite a lot, and a lot of the things you've done, you're very similar to me in that way. And even your work ethic and silly things, like I'm the same. I will not treat myself at all and just work, and then my head just goes then. So, but interesting, mate. So you're obviously working on this one. What is your favourite property strategy at the moment?
For me, so obviously I was doing HMOs. That was a big thing for me, but I don't enjoy the landlord process.
No.
For me, I would rather put that headspace and, you know, that effort into running a business, because I think the rewards are much better. From a cash flow perspective. You know, from a long-term perspective, yeah, people might argue, well, you're going to get not guaranteed income, but near enough guaranteed income if you build a portfolio. But for me, that just doesn't excite me at all. In fact, it bores me to death. So you can actually, and people, or despite us being on a property podcast, you can near enough make the same amount of money if you invest in the stock market over the long term. And people would argue differently, but there's very little in it between the two.
Yeah.
And the effort that you have to put into investing a pension and stocks and shares versus being a landlord, just night and day. So I ended up just on that point selling my HMOs. Kept one HMO that's in Article 4 area, obviously for the fact it's on a 5-year fixed mortgage at like 3% back in the good old days.
Clever man.
Something like that anyway. It's ridiculously cheap. So I've kept that Article 4. Everything else I've offloaded, and focusing primarily on developing and flipping, and the plan really with that is to sort of just compound that from a flip and development sort of perspective, and maybe start to do a little bit bigger stuff. And I think in the long term for me, I want to end up sort of owning sort of industrial commercial stuff, because you're not really a landlord. Commercial tenants are completely different to residential tenants. There's no aggro, you know. I think we said it on our podcast. Your letting agent doesn't phone you to tell you, you know, the rent's got, you know, your tenants paid more rent this month. It's like something's broke somewhere. So, and I just, for me, it's just not for me. I get why people do it, and for, you know, some people they offload it to a letting agent, but you still get the aggro on a third hand sort of or second hand experience, because, you know, if your tenant doesn't pay, it's your problem. It's not the letting agent's problem. It's your problem. So, just focusing on flipping, developing, and then see where the wind takes me from there, really. But
interesting, mate. Interesting. Do you have any? Do you think you do another? Because all your businesses that you've done, not all your business since like a kid and stuff, not like your FBA or whatever, but they've all been property related. Would you ever do something outside of property again, potentially?
So it's a really good question, that is. So obviously when I exited the other business, I was looking at other industries. So I wasn't going to mention it, but I'll mention it here. I started to look at haulage as an option. So I literally got my Class 1 license. I've qualified as a transport manager, so I can literally run a fleet of lorries if I wanted to, on an operator's license. So I literally deep dived into that industry for about 2 months, and then sort of realised that you make money on one wagon, you make no money between 1 and 5, and then you make money on 5 to 10. And you need shitloads of money to do that, and it just didn't appeal to me at all. And so sort of dumped that idea. On to the next idea was plant hire. So I ended up buying like a mini digger, dumper, and a trailer. And it just wasn't for me. I thought I might like, because I used to like that sort of stuff back when I was like, you know, doing the gardening. I love running around and stuff, but it turns out now I'm just an office bug. So it just didn't align to me. I was just running around too much hassle. That then led into buying some welfare containers, so like the cabins that you get on construction sites, so canteen, toilet, and generator, self-contained. So that is a phenomenal business, and anyone sort of listening to this podcast that wants a good business idea.
So what's that?
So basically it's converted shipping containers. The units that I bought were 12 foot, so you got like a canteen for 7 people plus a portaloo within the same unit, and a generator, so it's like a self-contained unit basically. If you can edit a photo onto the episode, I'll send you one. So it's towable, so you can put it on the back of like a pickup, your pickup, and sort of tow it anywhere. So I bought 4 of them, and I was hiring them out, and the money's great. The only downside to it is like 30 to 60 day payment terms. That's the only, from a cash flow. It's a difficult business in that sense, but it's a great little business. But again, it just wasn't me. It wasn't suited to me. It was I prefer to be able to offload the workload. And for me, I had to physically be in that business, you know, hopefully that makes sense. So I've recently offloaded them.
I love it, mate. I absolutely love it. It's interesting how you've actually got your hands there, you bought stuff, and then you've had to go and whatever. But I'm the same. I think my next business is I'm going to get into the storage space. I think
good business.
Really. I was looking at it before we start this business I got now, but I was looking at it, and it was quite a lot of input, and I was like, it is a little bit risky. So I am going to do it eventually. I'm just going to get a decent little portfolio around me, so I've got some security, and then get into it. But Scott, honestly, it's been a pleasure speaking to you again. I absolutely love speaking to you. It's amazing, mate. So if anyone's looking to connect or, you know, promote your podcast and do what you got to do.
So obviously appreciate you having me on. So the next, obviously, Property Developer Show, 4th of September in Manchester. Tickets are available on the website, which is propertydevelopershow.co.uk. You can follow us on social media, so Property Developer Show. We were quite good on the Instagram handles, but this is what I mean. There was no one doing it. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
It is amazing.
Got the website, got the the Instagram. And then if anyone wants to connect with me personally, my Instagram is Scott Lewis Williams, and Lewis is like Luis Suarez Lewis. Don't ask me why. That's just the way it is. My mum and dad's fault, that is. So yeah, that's it. And then the podcast, obviously, release an episode every Friday without fail, similar to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's Property Developer Show, the podcast.
Yeah.
Took us ages to come up with that.
It's a cracker, mate. I absolutely love it. But again, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure speaking to you, mate.
No,
and I had good fun.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me on.
No problem, brother. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.